Would you like a massage? Oh, okay. That's nice. Have you had a rough day? Do you need to recover? This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Why, hello again, endurance nerds. You're here again with me, the broken record, harping on recovery. I want to talk about recovery tools today. And this is much to my own detriment because these are my least popular, least viewed videos on the channel. They are not as sexy as the VO2 max increases, the FTP increases, Zwift videos. I get it. They're not as fun as those active types of videos, but they are very important. The literature and science is clear. Recovery is where the adaptations are made. And for those people who choose not to heed good recovery practices, at best, they face stagnation in their training, and at worst, they face overtraining and injury. So for those of you who are watching these types of videos, you are making an investment in your performance and your future as an athlete by trying to at least take on some of the best practices. The video I made last week about sleep, if you haven't caught that video already, I will link it in the show notes below as well as at the end screen. It's very important. In fact, I think it's the most important element of recovery to get good quality sleep. Check that one out if you haven't already. I have talked quite a bit on this channel about periodization and putting daylight between your hard workouts. And in this video, I want to speak more about an element that might be a little bit more on the optional side of recovery, but could be very helpful in terms of expediting recovery, and that is the physical rehabilitation piece. And I want to talk specifically about massage guns. When percussive massage guns were initially released, the market was pretty much cornered by a couple of flagship brands, and the cost on these guns was pretty prohibitive to the vast majority of your everyday amateur athletes. Most people did not see the value in spending $300, $400, $500 for a percussive massage gun when they can simulate some element of benefit at home for a much lower cost. However, as years went on, more and more companies started to enter the market. And as is usually the evolution of these types of things, we started with those knockoff brands that came up with pretty cheap imitations that didn't do a whole lot of good. But over the years, more and more companies threw their hat into the ring, really coming up with high quality devices with just as much efficacy, if not more, than the flagship brands out there at a fraction of the cost. At this point, you can buy a very good quality massage gun for half, if not a third of the price of something like your Theraguns or your Hypervolts out there. And I'm not trying to disparage these companies. They put out a good quality product, but in terms of value for the everyday athlete, you can do a lot better in terms of value for cost on a massage gun. But why would you want to buy a massage gun to begin with, whatever the price may be? Well, I think the benefits of massage are pretty clear, and it comes down to fascial release. When we are training day in and day out and putting a massive amount of load on our working muscles, we end up getting those little tweaks, niggles, those sore hot spots, trigger points, even just heaviness and general fatigue. And when you are able to apply some sort of massage to those heavily hit areas, you're able to recover more rapidly for a couple of reasons. First, there's just RPE, right? When you're a little bit sore or tight in an area, the RPE for your workouts goes up pretty precipitously. And that's going to bring your maximum performance in those workouts down. If you can't reach for those higher numbers, you're not going to make the same adaptations if your muscles feel a little bit more loose and in less pain. So getting some fascial release is certainly helpful in that regard. There are also elements to having those maybe hot spots or those trigger points that are causing you pain that cause your mechanics to change, whether you're running, cycling, and that compensation could cause overuse or injuries in other areas that you weren't expecting. So being able to loosen up some of those heavily hit working muscles can be very beneficial to performance in a number of ways. Now, there's clearly a number of options in terms of getting a massage. Of course, there's a traditional massage. If you can afford it, going to a physical therapist or a massage therapist that is a professional and trained to treat your muscle groups, that's great. But I think for most of us, having that budget to hit the massage therapist 2-3 times a week, and that number of touch points is really what's going to make massage much more efficacious for you. It's just not in the cards for a lot of us. So we seek home options, which are much more budget friendly. Now, of course, there is the foam roller. The foam roller is great. I recommend a foam roller for people who are in endurance sport, but you have to remember that there's a practical element as well. A foam roller is not the most convenient. I mean, if you're using it at home or at your local gym, it works really well, but flexibility to have a place to do foam rolling if you're traveling, if maybe you're commuting and trying to find ways to sneak in a little bit of that therapeutic massage, it's not the most practical. More than that though is the modulation effect. When you are trying to modulate the pressure on your muscles, you're using your entire body weight. And if you have really tender or sore areas, it might hurt quite a bit to put all of your body weight on, let's say, the back of your hamstrings or on your calves. And some people do not have the requisite upper body strength to kind of hold themselves upright and to change the pressure pressure that they are feeling underneath them on the foam roller. So it's a great tool, but the great thing about something like a massage gun is that it's kind of that Goldilocks. You can take it and use it anywhere. You can use it sitting on your couch. You can use it at your local gym. You can use it on your local train if you use something like that to commute back and forth. You can use it in your office because you can carry it pretty much anywhere. It has the additional benefit of being able to access muscles that a foam roller simply cannot access. So if I needed to get the inside of my bicep, I'm not doing that with a foam roller. If I find a trigger point real deep into my fascia of the hamstring, I can access that and modulate that pressure and work my way into the pressure that I need instead of trying to back off my body weight on something like a foam roller. And then there's of course affordability. Comparing something like a massage gun to a traditional massage, you're able to kind of hit that sweet spot in between something like a foam roller and a traditional massage. Now, if you're watching this video, you may have already been curious about a massage gun and maybe looking into whether or not it has value for you. And in this video, I'm not going to tell you which massage gun you should buy. I'm not going to be comparing brands, but rather I'm going to give you the knowledge and the understanding of the features and specifications of massage guns that you need to purchase a gun that is going to be the best value for you. Many people look at massage guns and think, okay, I'm just going to find the one with the highest speed. That means it's the most powerful and it's going to work best for me. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are a lot of lousy massage guns out there. There are a lot of great massage guns out there, and a lot of them are at similar price points. So I'm going to go over 4 key features that you should be looking for in either the literature or the features and specifications sheet for any massage gun so that you make sure that you have a gun that is going to be effective and that you're actually going to use. Because that's really the key here. It's about value proposition. It needs to be a gun that's value for dollar for you, and it's something that you're actually going to use. It doesn't matter how much you spend on one of these guns. If it sits on a shelf somewhere, it's absolutely worthless. Now, the first and preference-based specification I want to talk about is with respect to sound or volume of the device. And please do not underestimate the impact of volume to your willingness and ability to use one of these guns. There are high quality, very high priced guns out there that literally sound like jackhammers. They are loud. Even if you're using this on your own, it can be annoying. But if you have a household, you have kids, even trying to lock yourself away in another room, those guns can be heard from pretty far away. And if you're too embarrassed to use a gun in whatever environment you have, whether it's in your home, at your local gym, at the airport, on the way to a race, what have you, you're not going to use it. It is going to collect dust on a shelf. Some of your mainstay guns, like your Theragun and Hypervolt, those have models that reach 60 to 65 decibels. To put that into context, 60 to 65 decibels is projected conversational volume. So if you were talking to somebody at a restaurant, I'm probably speaking at about 60 to 65 decibels right now because I'm trying to project energy into this video. This is louder than I would speak to somebody sitting next to me. Now you might be thinking, that's not a particularly big deal. That's not super loud. Okay, well try to watch a movie while you're listening to somebody speak at this volume right next to you. Try to focus on what you're doing or put your child to sleep while somebody in the other room is projecting in terms of volume of their voice. It's actually pretty obtrusive in terms of sound. If it's not a big deal for you to use a gun of that volume, great, that's perfect for you. But you do want to consider it in terms of your ability or willingness to use it throughout your day and in different environments. But luckily, we can find a number of full-size guns that are far more affordable that have done a lot more work in terms of dampening sound. You're doing pretty well with the full-size powerful gun if you're somewhere around that 50 decibel mark in terms of volume. Now, if you're not familiar with how volume is measured, if you think 15 decibels is not a big deal, it absolutely is. For every 10 decibel increase in terms of sound measurement, that is a perceived doubling of volume to the human ear. That's a big deal. So if you have something, this gun here is 52 decibels. So it's about 13 decibels less than what I discussed with the Theragun and the Hypervolt. Now, you can hear this gun. It's definitely audible. If you're going to get a powerful gun, you're going to hear it. But I haven't had to raise the volume of my voice to overcome this gun. It's about half of my speaking volume, as I mentioned, between 60 and 65 decibels. So this is something you would be more inclined to use. Around 52 decibels is about quiet talking volumes. So you can definitely hear it, but it's not going to be obtrusive or embarrassing. So if you wanted to use this in your home, if you wanted to even use this at something like an airport while you're traveling, even at your office, I suppose, it's not going to be too disruptive to the people around you. Now you can also find the travel guns that are much quieter. This gun here, I'm going to turn this on. You probably heard this in the intro or didn't hear it in the intro. This thing is whisper quiet. So these guns range from 35 decibels at the low end, and then they peak at 42 decibels. So 35 decibels is about whisper volume, and I can talk talk very clearly over this. I mean, people can barely hear this. As I move farther away from the microphone, you're going to lose the ability to hear this gun. You hear maybe just a very slight whine of the motor. And if I put it up to max volume here, again, that's very quiet. I can use this and talk. I can use this in my office. I can use this pretty much anywhere, and nobody's going to notice this. It is barely audible for me sitting right here next to the gun. So looking for those different volume levels could really impact how well you're going to use it. But now let's get into the power elements of the gun, the trifecta, if you will, that you need to look at in terms of how powerful and how effective your gun is going to be. And I'm going to start with the one that everybody looks at first, and that's speed. And that speed is usually measured in percussions per minute, or ppm. But beware that more is not always better. You can see a gun that goes up to 3,500 ppm, but if you don't have the tolerance for a gun that moves that fast or that intensely on your muscles, you're not going to get use out of that. So don't just go and look for which one has the highest ppm, that's the one that I need. You have to bear in mind how useful, how practical that is for you. Many people who get a massage gun have to kind of work their way into the higher speeds. What you really want to look for more is a range of speeds. Something that can give you a pretty decent low end to a pretty decent high end. So the low end speeds you might not think are important, but they actually can be very effective. Whether you're of a smaller build, or you have very tender areas, or you're trying to get more sensitive areas around bone, you might need a lower speed. The lowest speeds that I've typically seen on guns are around 1,600 ppm, and the highest speeds I've seen around 3,500 ppm. You'll probably see some outliers here and there, and most of the guns don't cover that whole gamut of speed, but just to kind of give you an idea of where you might land in that spectrum there. So this smaller gun that I have, this one goes from 1,800 ppm up to 3,000. So it has a pretty good range in terms of speed if you're thinking of those high and low limits that I talked about. And what's nice about the lower limit is if I wanted to attack areas up in like the shoulders, or areas that are sensitive around, the bone area, if I wanted to grab areas in the feet, in the hands, around the spine, it's nice to have that low speed so I can attack those tender, sensitive areas without too much intensity coming from the gun. This full-size gun that I have here, this one goes from 2,000 ppm to 3,200. So it just basically shifts that range a little bit higher, so I get a little bit more reach on the high end. The low end is still pretty effective for those sensitive areas, but I know that I reach for this gun here as a person that doesn't carry a ton of muscle. Sometimes I need this lower limit for some of those more sensitive areas. Make sure that you have an effective range. If you are a smaller athlete, a woman, you might want to try to look for something with a lower limit. 2,000 for me is pretty good. So if you wanted something with a good upper limit, or you're sharing this gun, I think you'll do okay with this, but just something to bear in mind. But I'm going to pause right here and ask those of you to look kindly on a small little creator and hit that thumbs up button, help us fight against that big bad algorithm. The next specification is something that most people are not trained to look for, and that is the specification of amplitude. Now, if you're familiar with measuring frequency, you know that amplitude is the measurement between the peaks, right? In much the same way, amplitude is the measurement of travel that you are going to get when the percussive head travels in and out of the gun. And this is measured in millimeters. Now, most guns are going to range anywhere on the low end to about 4 millimeters up to as high as 16 millimeters. Now, again, beware that more is not always better. Don't just look for the highest specified gun and think it's going to work for you. Amplitude plays into the penetration to the muscle. So if I held this gun in a fixed position and I didn't move it, that I'm going to know that this gun is going to penetrate the muscle by 10 millimeters in this case. So if you have a higher or lower specified gun, that is how much penetration you will get into the muscle beyond just modulating the pressure with some upper body strength. And as I mentioned with speed, you have to be cognizant of sensitivity. If you have tender areas, having 16 millimeters of amplitude might not be something that you're comfortable using, and you won't use the gun at all. In my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, I would look for a gun that's somewhere between 10 and 12 millimeters if you're looking for a full-size gun. That will give you a good balance between adding some of that pressure with your own strength, as well as having some built-in penetration from the gun and the amplitude itself. That way you're not locked into a very high amplitude, and the 5 millimeter models that are your travel models mostly, it might not be quite enough. Now I have this gun here, and this is a travel model, and this has 7 millimeters in terms of amplitude, which is actually pretty decent for a gun of this size. And for me personally, I don't notice that it really holds me back in terms of power. I can put enough pressure into this gun that I don't feel like I'm missing out over this gun, which is 10 millimeters. I'm not a particularly large athlete, so it may be something to think about if you're a little bit more built or you're a larger athlete. I've known a lot of men who use this gun and speak volumes about it, but I don't want to speak for them. This is just what I've heard, but it's something to consider. Again, if you're buying a full-size gun, I think 10 to 12 millimeters is a solid sweet spot to look for. Now, the last specification is something that is the hardest to look for, and a good company will list this right on their landing page or their specifications list, and if you do not see it, I recommend you reach out to the manufacturer and ask, or to see if you can find it somewhere else in the literature, but that comes by way of stall force. Now, if you're not familiar with what stall force is, it is basically the amount of resistance or pressure that a gun can withstand before the motor comes to a stop. So if I were going to turn on this gun here, how much pressure would I need to apply to stop the motor from running? And you're gonna get a higher stall force the higher setting that you use, but I'm not really exaggerating here. You have to think about how much pressure this gun can withstand when you're working into those muscles and whether or not that gun is going to come to a stop. And reasonably speaking, a stall force of 25 pounds or higher is going to be more than adequate for typical use. I guarantee you, with the power of the gun in conjunction with your own upper body strength, you are not going to want to put more than 25 pounds of force into the gun. So I can take this gun here, and for reference, this is up to 38 pounds of stall force, and I can really work into this muscle without bringing the gun to a stop. I mean, this is uncomfortable. I would not want to use the gun in this way if I were using it for my own personal use. Even these smaller guns, you can get a pretty good amount of stall force out of it. So this gun in particular, this has 32 pounds of stall force. If I pocket this enough, I can get it to stop, but they're pretty strong. But you can find guns out there that are not adequate, especially the travel size guns. You find ones that even at just a light amount of pressure onto your forearms will bring the gun to a stop. That's not going to be usable. You can also find ones that go quite a bit higher. Some of the higher end guns go up to 45 pounds of stall force. That's really overkill for 99% of people. I suppose if you're a really big bodybuilder, you might need something with 45 pounds of stall force, but 25 pounds and up, 30 pounds if you want to be exceptionally safe is going to be more than enough for your typical needs. Now, once you've exhausted those key features and specifications, that's when you can start looking at the window dressings. Things like app integration. Some of your more expensive guns have applications and profiles with different massage features available to them. For me, not particularly worth it. If I'm going to use a massage gun, I'm actually going to try to find those areas that are tender and spend extra time there when I'm using the gun rather than letting an application decide for me. But for you, it might be of value, so that might be a feature that you're looking for. Things like cases, right? Do they come with a hard case? It might be helpful if you travel a lot or you want to throw this in your backpack so you can hold everything together. Things like the massage heads, right? Do they come with enough massage heads that you can do what you need to do? The key massage heads you might want to look for are the fork, which go around bony areas, especially the spine or the Achilles. You get the bullet, might help you get deep into that hip area or into the palms or in the bottom of the feet. What I like here that mine come with are these air cushioned head, which are kind of a combination of the typical foam ball head that you'll see and then the flat head. And it's just kind of a softer landing, if you will. So it's got a pretty good surface area, but it's not going to be quite as intense as something like the flat head that you see here. It's just time and place. So usually there are about 5 heads that most of these guns will come with. Make sure that they have some variety for you to use. The more that they have, if you're going to get use out of them, great, but it's not necessary to have 15 different heads. Most of them are just variations on a theme. Things like battery life. Most of them these days will have more than enough battery life for heavy usage to last you 2 to 3 days, and for standard usage, going to last you a week or more. Usually people are going to use these for about 30 minutes at a time at most on a daily basis, and most of them will have something like a 6, 8, 12-hour battery life, so you'll get a good amount of use before you have to recharge. I love that the guns that I've purchased have USB-C charging. Makes it really convenient. I don't have to bring around an extra charger. Some of you might be curious as to which guns I use personally. I've tried a number of guns, either through demo or borrowing, but I can only speak in detail to those things I've used for a longer period of time. So I'll talk briefly about the guns that I've used over the past several years. The first gun I ever purchased was this here, and this is the Renfo Ergo model. And Renfo is a great brand. If you're looking for some newer models, Renfo might be a good brand to look at. But this model is about 2 years old, maybe a little bit more. I bought it almost 2 years ago, and I liked it because it had this adjustable head. So if I wanted to basically not use the 90 degree, and I wanted to go basically 180 degrees, so I could actually kind of place this down on my quad like so, instead of having my elbow upright, I thought that this was really cool. However, they haven't refreshed this model, and it only goes up to 2400 ppm. It's a little bit too low of a reach for me in terms of speed, being acclimated to using a gun like this, and because of the newer technology, I wanted to upgrade. Renfo in general, I can definitely recommend them in terms of brand and their quality. But since that time, I have moved into these models here. And these are Bob and Brad model guns. Bob and Brad, if you're not aware, are 2 physical therapists.
Together we are the most famous physical therapists on the internet.
In our opinion, of course, Bob.
They have a channel right here on YouTube. They are making videos every single day. I think they have like 3.4 million subscribers or something like that. And they make videos on stretching, sleeping positions, postural changes, self-massage, treatment for pretty much any type of muscular, skeletal, or tendon dysfunction that you can think of. They are not targeted specifically towards athletes, but I can tell tell you, I have found some very valuable material from them over the course of the years. And you can tell just by watching one video from these guys, they're not grifters. They're not really looking to make a huge profit. In fact, I don't think they pull a profit from these guns. They basically partnered with manufacturers for these guns to create value for their customers. And the guns that they sell, they have a number of different models available, always have discounts, coupons. You get them right from Amazon with free Prime shipping. So when it came down to making a buying decision between similarly specified guns, I basically broke the tie by looking at the names and faces that I knew and I trusted from this space being on YouTube. So I'd recommend checking them out. If you're curious about them, I'll leave the links to these guns down below. But specifically in terms of models, this smaller model I've had longer, and I wanted something that was more portable than the Renfo, something that I could bring on vacation that wasn't going to be obtrusive. I was actually very impressed. I didn't think this was going to be as powerful as it was. I actually think that I could get away with just this gun here. And to give you a concept of size, this is smaller than my cell phone here. It is a small gun. I can almost fit this thing in my pocket. I can stow it away in pretty much any suitcase, backpack, what have you. I brought this on vacation with me in August. It was great because I used it a lot because I could carry it. I could use it in the car. I could use it sitting at the dinner table if I really wanted to. But this is a great quality gun. I've already talked about the specifications throughout the course of this video, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for a travel size gun. The other gun I have not had as long. This is the Bob & Brad T2. This was actually only released about a month ago, but I jumped on it right away because I was so pleased with this gun and wanted just that little bit more reach that I got from this higher end gun here. But what's interesting about this model is they actually went ahead and cannibalized their more expensive high-end model and made something more consumer friendly. They have a model, I think it's called the 6X Pro, which is their professional model, actually targeted towards professional therapists. And it had very high-end specifications, but they also had very robust build quality because it was something that was going to take abuse. So a larger, bulkier charger, more metallic components that are not necessary for people who are going to use it for just standard daily use. So they took those same specifications and trickled them down into something that's more consumer appropriate, something that doesn't need all those metallic elements, something that's going to hold up to personal use and abuse, if you will. And this is at the same time an upgrade from what they have as a C2 model. That was a model that was really targeted more toward the everyday customer, the non-athlete. So a person who might have an injury or just general maybe muscular, skeletal, or tendon dysfunction that they wanted some sort of therapeutic relief. So this is a step up from that in terms of its features. Could they have forced everybody to spend the extra money to buy the Pro model? Absolutely, but they didn't. And that was a really good sell for me in terms of Bob & Brad and making sure that they partnered with the manufacturer in the best interest of the consumer and not just in the best interest of the bottom line. Those are the reasons that I believe in Bob & Brad's models and why I personally own them. But as I already mentioned, there are a number of great brands out there. I'll leave these links down below in case you're curious and want to look into the ones that I use, but I'm not beholden to Bob & Brad. Not sponsored. They didn't send me these guns. These are just what I particularly chose using the same concepts that I have shared with you today. But if you have any questions about purchasing a massage gun in general, let me know. I'll try to help you out the best I can in the comments down below. If you've got any value out of this video, hit that thumbs up button. Check out these videos over here. Subscribe to the channel. All of the YouTubey stuff, you know this. You've been here before. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. See ya.